Hello, all. Today's discussion is about cardiovascular conditioning. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because I know that the expert opinion in the fitness industry has shifted quite a bit over the last like 20, 30 years. And I think that it's notable and it's worthy of a discussion. And I think that, it needs to be talked about. I see cardiovascular conditioning as something that is uniquely beneficial for a variety of reasons that are not included in the majority of the lexicon with which people view it in, right? And I know growing up, I know that somebody who was in search of changing my own physique, cardiovascular conditioning was something that, you would obviously hear about it from like the American Heart Association, that it was a healthy thing for you to condition your heart. I know that my grandfather used to do a lot of cardio because he had concerns about his cardiovascular health. And so obviously there are the obvious benefits to cardiovascular conditioning. We really went through a phase over the course of the last like 20 years, and especially like when I started in the industry, where we looked at cardiovascular work, aerobic work, as kind of the endurance athlete's tool to use to improve their endurance work. And essentially, endurance work and strength work are somewhat antagonistic to one another. It is true that if you spend a tremendous amount of time working endurance, you will sacrifice your ability to increase muscle size. You will sacrifice your ability to increase muscle strength because you are continually telling your nervous system that this is not the thing that you want the most of. So I can see how a strength coach who works at the highest level with Olympians would be against excessive amounts of cardio. And so the recommendations made by one of my mentors, Charles Poliquin, was always that you build an aerobic base for 6 to 8 weeks, and then after that, you really stick to intervals short. And if you want to start to condition yourself more, you can do it using weight training. And I think that there's merit to that still. But I do want to make some earmarks around that and bring it into the next century, that kind of thing. So I think from a historical standpoint, we looked at cardiovascular work in the 80s and 90s as something that was beneficial for heart health and also was one of the primary methods of getting fat off the body, right? And so you would use cardio to get fat off, and you would use strength training to build muscle. And so that was very cut and dry, overly simplified view of the way that things are when it comes to that. But I think really what's happened over the course of like the late 90s and then early zips and stuff, the strength coaching industry and really the fitness industry as a whole moved to this whole paradigm of let's get away from the slow cardio, let's get away from the fat burning zone. And so you should really just be working really hard. And when you're working really hard, you're burning more calories, and then you have this thing called the afterburn, which is the acronym is EPOC, excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. And so what happens is that your body's replenishing all the different energy systems separately, and so it takes about 36 hours for that to like fully replenish. And because of that, you end up in this like more of a fat burning state for the next like 36 hours. And maybe that's true, right? We've always been very, very biased to looking at what the research shows and, what does the data tell us? And the thing is that just because the data tells us certain things, there are tremendous limitations in that data. And because it doesn't really take into consideration real life. We just look at the data and we say, well, based on this, we can assume these other things. And so regardless of what the research says, we're still making a lot of assumptions about a lot of things. And what we found over the last 10 years is that the more intense the cardiovascular work that we do, the more it actually ramps up our hunger. And so if you're utilizing cardiovascular work and aerobic work as your primary method of increasing your caloric expenditure, you are fighting an uphill battle essentially. Because the harder that you work, and I'm just talking about this in exercise sense across the board, right? Exercise, hard work with exercise, whether it be aerobic work, that's hard interval type stuff, or strength training and even more volume with regards to strength training, you are going to end up being more hungry than you normally would. So if you are a robot, right, and you are training your ass off and you're starving yourself and hungry as hell and you're still able to like stick it through, you're still choosing to walk a much harder path than you'd have to if you weren't creating all of those excess hunger pangs, right? Now, if you're not a robot, also like shooting yourself in the foot, because you are hungry, you're going to break your diet, and you'd have to be like a complete robot not to. The other thing is that if you're doing sprint intervals every single time that you're doing aerobic work, you will cut into the performance that you could potentially be pulling from your strength training. And that is a really big deal because your recovery is only so much, right? So there's a conundrum here. When I was coming up, the entire industry as a whole was like, slow cardio is a waste of time for physique goals, reserved only specifically for endurance athletes and people that are looking for the cardiovascular benefit. If you want fat loss, intervals are the way to go. In fact, the VO2 max gains from interval work versus slow, long, steady state aerobic work are, the same, right? So you're saving time, right? It just seemed like every benefit in the world was just better overall. If you can grit your teeth and get through it, you get through it in a shorter period of time, and you get better benefits, and you burn more calories, and wing, bing, bang, bong, you're way better. But since the research came out about, the hunger and all that stuff, I think that the biggest thing to pay attention to when it comes to fat loss is the caloric expenditure. It's the amount of calories in and the calories out. And really, the amount of calories that you burn in any sort of exercise related endeavor is a very small percentage of your total calories burned for the day. The majority of the calories that you burn is actually your BMR, which is keeping your system functional, right, at the minimum, but also it's your non-exercise activity. So that is like fidgeting, moving around, walking, things like that. And so if you really want to increase your caloric expenditure every single day, you're better off not exercising it off, but you're better off doing non-exercise activity, and that includes walking. So walking is your magic tool for increasing your caloric expenditure, and we should really save strength training and cardio work for what they're good for, the adaptations, the physical adaptations that they produce. And strength training increases strength and neural drive, increases muscle size. It can improve mitochondrial density just like cardio can, right? Because there is a carryover and there's a crossover between the two stimuluses. But it will also, strength training will maintain lean muscle and will help to shape your body. And so use it for what it's good for. Use it to shape your body. Use it to build muscle, right? Don't use it to burn calories. It's a ridiculous thing to do exercise so that you can just burn calories, okay? And so by the same token, if we're gonna go by that thought process, then we need to apply that same thought process to aerobic work. And so what's aerobic work good for? Well, the obvious things that aerobic work is good for is going to be increasing stroke volume, increasing cardiac output altogether, improving oxygen utilization, absorption through the lungs, and increasing capillary density and increasing delivery of oxygen to the tissues. And then, of course, on the utilization side, you're going to be increasing mitochondrial density within the tissues, and how the body basically gets rid of waste product like lactate and things like that, and then pushes it back into the bloodstream, and how you can, the overall efficiency of all these things, and all of these things that require energy and physical adaptations to make better, to make more improvements on, right? So if we use our strength training to improve our muscular system and to improve the shape of our body and to maintain strength and mobility and function, and we use aerobic work to help and improve energy delivery and energy function in the body and our ability to be more efficient with our energy utilization then the only thing that we really have to worry about is making sure that our calories in, calories out balance is in the direction that we want to see it. So if you want to lose body fat, you make sure that you're burning more calories than you consume. And the same is true if you want to build some muscle, then you at least need to eat as much as you burn, or preferably a little bit more, just so that you have a little safeguard. And so if you're looking to improve your total amount of calories burned, you're not going to do it through cardio really, and you're not going to do it through strength training really. Really what you're going to do is increase your non-exercise activity, and that is the strategy for that. But what are, since I started this video, what are the benefits to aerobic work that we haven't talked about that are worth training? And really, those are going to fit into three categories. One, you're improving your ability to recover in between sets of your strength training. Number one, you're improving nutrient delivery to all of your tissues, enhancing your ability for your heart to pump blood all around your body, so that even if you do a heavy duty training session that requires more volume than you've ever had before, that you're going to be able to handle that without necessarily choking up, because you have the cardiovascular capacity to do it. So that allows you to do more meaningful volume, and it allows you to take all that stress and make sure that when you come home and sleep at night is going towards muscular recovery and not going towards rebuilding or changing up your aerobic system, your energy systems, because that's already so trained that it's not, that the heavy duty strength training is no longer a stimulus for you. So I hope that makes sense. So that's number one. Number two, it modulates your autonomic nervous system. And one of the things that keeps us fat burning is that we stay in a rest and digest state throughout the rest of our day. If we move into fight or flight, like many of us are chronically stuck in fight or flight, it changes our entire metabolism. It changes the entire way that our metabolism functions. It causes us to burn primarily carbs, because the idea when we're in fight or flight is that we want to get away from the lion. And when we want to get away from the lion, we need quick energy, and we need carbohydrates, and we need stress, and we need catecholamines and all of the other stuff. And so one of the things that I think people overlook is that when you train aerobically and you get all the benefits of that, it also happens to modulate how your autonomic nervous system switches between parasympathetic and sympathetic dominant states. That's rest and digest versus fight or flight. And so when your autonomic nervous system becomes better at staying in a rest or digest state throughout your day, what happens is that you end up being and maintaining a fat burning state for longer. And so all the time that you're not exercising, you're in a fat burning state. And that's how you get lean long term. And that's part of the benefit of doing aerobic training. And so that's why you would do it. You would do it so that you can benefit from those types of adaptations. Another thing is going to be increasing mitochondrial density. And mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. They provide you with energy. And primarily, they're your fat burners. So when you have fatty acids that you need to turn into energy, your mitochondria are the ones that step in and do that. So if you have aerobic conditioning on your side, and you have a large reserve of machines that are willing to burn fat on your body all the time, and you're maintaining your state hormonally every single day to burn fat, that means that at rest, you become a fat burning machine. So I want the takeaway from this video to be that aerobic conditioning helps you, it helps your machinery to be better at burning fat. It helps your hormonal status so that you don't switch over into fight or flight when you don't need to. It improves oxygen and energy delivery, nutrient delivery, and also waste removal so that you can perform better in your training sessions. And strength training helps to improve your muscle strength and size. And so fat burning is about the overall energy expenditure. It's not about the exercise. The exercise is about the adaptation. And so if you can make sure that you're getting the adaptations that you need from aerobic work. You won't be getting aerobic adaptations out of your strength training, and it's going to make your strength training better. So it's basically this, it's one facet. It's like, it's a foundational keystone, let's say that, that'll make your goal setting, your goal achievements in your physique aspirations much, much easier to achieve. And that's why I think aerobic training is important. Not because it burns calories, but because of the adaptations that it promotes. I hope that that's clear. And let me know if you have any questions, and leave them in the comments below. Thanks.